Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Manmouth. I'll introduce the crew real quick. Willie Epting has a couple of minutes to go, hopefully, and he'll be able to get his question on his segment. The crew, obviously, is Eric Katz, Jordan Long, George Eichhorn, Willie Epting, and yes, Warren Brusstar will come as advertised tonight. All right, Willie, we're going to be talking about the 1980 Philadelphia Phillies. Go ahead and ask Mr. Brusstar what's on your mind. And while you do that, also find out whether or not you think Pete Rose belongs in the Hall of Fame. All right, Willie, the floor is yours.
Hey, Warren, man, thank you for coming on with us. I appreciate it. I'm honored to talk to you.
Thank you, Willie. I appreciate it.
I am a huge baseball fan. It is the first. It's my first love, and I've had a love-hate relationship with baseball over the years, like most people. We've been on the verge of divorce many times, but here we are. I actually want to ask you a question about the late Vida Blue. He passed away last week or a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you, in the age of when you played, there wasn't any, of course, interleague baseball, but was there at any point where you guys you ever had to go against any of his teams?
Yes, he was with the San Francisco Giants in 1978, and then I grew up here in the Bay Area. I live in Napa, where I grew up, and Vida loved to come to Napa and play golf. I played in a number of golf tournaments with Vida, and he became a very good friend, wonderful man. I did baseball clinics with him, and the kids just absolutely adored him. He had kids in his lap constantly, and just was a super human being. You know, it's a big loss for baseball, and all the baseball in the Oakland A's organization, the Giants organization, Kansas City, all the teams that he played for.
It's funny that you mentioned that because him and my dad were close. We lived in I grew up the first part of my life in Oakland, and that's where my love for that city and that team comes from. And when you talk about the kids, I was telling the story on my show a little earlier today, how I remember we were at his house when he lived in Alameda. And my older sister and I, we were actually playing on the beach while him and my dad were in the house talking and doing whatever it is that they were doing. And I do recall him being just a tremendous man, and very, very, very fun to be around too.
Right. Always had a smile on his face, always having a great time. Just never had a bad day. Just a beautiful human being.
Got anything else, Adam? You want to talk about the 1980s team real quickly, Willie? I know, and Pete Rose real fast.
Well, not necessarily Pete Rose, because that story is going to continue to be what it is until it's not.
Right.
But for me, I mean, you were on the staff with a lot of great pitchers there. You know, Bystrom and of course Steve Carlton, and then you know the guys out there with Manny Trio, and here's my favorite name of all time. And I want you to just tell one story that you can tell about this guy. What was Bake McBride like in the clubhouse? That is my favorite name ever.
He was quite a character. He was what would you say? He was very he was always up to something. You know, he had to keep one eye on Bake because you never knew what was going to happen. He was great. He was great to be around. He was a lot of fun to be around, and we got him in a trade in the middle of 1977, and he really made our team go. He really made the offense go. He gave us somebody that could steal bases and really put pressure on the defense. He was an outstanding player and a great human being, another great guy to just be around. And he was inducted to the Philadelphia Philly Wall of Fame last summer. We finally had our reunion last August. For the 1980 team, our 40-year reunion, due to COVID, of course, obviously we couldn't attend, and no one could attend. And then Bake and Ron Reed were both put on the Wall of Fame. Both the very deserving individuals to be on the Wall of Fame and recognized by the Philadelphia Philly organization.
Awesome. One last question for me, and I remember this gentleman, the way he could rake and the amount of power that he had. And that's Greg Luzinski. Was he really as big in person as he was on TV? My
yes,
God.
Yes, yeah. So he'd walk through the clubhouse, and his son was about 3 or 4 years old at the time, would walk together, and they both have the same body type. I mean, he was a huge human being, and his little boy had the same big, huge legs, and he was a tremendous talent. He had absolutely launched balls at the bat and hit a lot of tape measure home runs. He was fun to watch. Tommy Underwood got traded from us for Bake McBride in '77, and Tommy came back the first time, and Bull hit 2 balls off of him up into the upper deck. It was just 2 bull blasts. He hit the ball a long way. In fact, in Houston, he hit a ball that almost hit the back of the Astrodome wall.
Wow.
Yeah, he hit some mammoth home runs.
Unbelievable. Well, Scooter, that's all I got, man. I got to get out of here.
Hey, you know what? You did a lot in 5 minutes, man. I'll tell you what, Willie, you cease to amaze me. And tonight was one of your better acts. It was a short, but one of your better acts. Okay, Willie, before you leave, let everybody know how they get a hold of you real fast, okay?
Let's see. On Twitter, at Shakeback Media Group. That's SHK MED. No, it's Shakeback. It's SHKBK. MEDIAGRPBK on Twitter, also on YouTube at Shakeback Media Group. And I got all kind of shows going around. So our website is where you can check me out, shakebackgroup.com.
Yeah, and I met Willie through Twitter. So you know what? You can meet great people everywhere. And with all due respect, Eric and Willie Epting are a product of Twitter. Thank you very much. All right, Willie, thanks for hanging in there with us. Glad you got a few in. And you and I have a lot more. I'll see you the next time in 2 weeks on this very show, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. All right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Y'all take care.
Thanks a lot, Willie. Appreciate you very much, my friend.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Now there are 5. Okay, well, you know what? You want to talk about rapid fire, George, is a far cry from what we had last night. Yeah. All right, Warren, you know what? I'm going to ask you a couple of questions now.
Sure.
Let's talk about Mike Schmidt.
Yes.
Favorite story
arguably the greatest third baseman to ever play the game. You know, just struggled one year, hit 196 and only hit about 20 home runs, and then all of a sudden figured it out. And he claims a lot of it. He claims to Pete Rose. He even when Pete played with Cincinnati, they went out to dinner or something, and Pete just told him, have fun. Just have fun during the game. And that's what, you know, I always had a great time. It was where I like to be, between the white lines. It was always, you had to have a smile on your face, and you're out there having fun and playing a kid's game. So, you know, he finally realized it and quit putting so much pressure on himself, and then ended up having a Hall of Fame career.
Well, you led into the next one very well. I'll tell you, if I was doing play-by-play, you'd definitely be hired as my color commentator, Warren. Good. Thankfully, my friend. All right.
Thank you.
Let's talk about Pete, okay?
Yes.
And this will be a 2-part question. Item number 1, okay? Do you think he should be in the Hall of Fame despite everything that he's done with gambling?
Without question. You know, he was the greatest hitter. He's the all-time hit king. So, you know, to me, when I see Roger Clemens, 7 Cy Youngs, Barry Bonds, the all-time home run leader, Pete, the all-time hit leader, and all 3 of them are not in the Hall of Fame, there's something wrong with baseball. You know, that's just my personal opinion. They should be recognized for what they did on the field, not between the white lines, and not what they did off of it.
All right, so the second part of that question, will he get in there post when he's dead?
I would think so. I think sooner or later, you know, when he passes away, yeah, I think the Veterans Committee will recognize, you know, what a great player he was, and the things off the field that he was involved in will be a thing of the past, and they'll be buried with him.
Yeah, well, I mean, the guy living, I mean, he's not helping his cause every time he goes to Cooperstown and has an autograph signing right down the road.
Right.
I mean, you know, Pete, you know, you've done very little to make any friends. Well, you know, I'm going to sign autographs, put money in my pocket while this is going on.
Right.
I mean, you could pick 50 other weeks to do it and then anger any commissioner that's been in sight. To me, seriously, you know, I don't know. He's not helping his cause. I mean, I like Pete Rose, and having been to Cooperstown a few times, his artifacts are all over Cooperstown.
Right.
So, you know, the only thing that isn't in there is the plaque.
Yeah, is him. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
All right. So let's go ahead and look back on your career and your journey to the big leagues.
All right. Well,
go ahead.
I started in Napa, California at Napa High, and I had a very good high school baseball coach, Clarence Ty. And Bill Buckner was 2 years ahead of me. So there was always a lot of scouts around when we were playing. And Bill was one of the greatest contact hitters, doubles hitter to ever play the game. And then I went from there. I played 1 year at Napa Valley College, where I presently coach. I've been doing that for on and off for 30 years. And then I went to Fresno State for 2 years. I got drafted twice by the Giants, and I got to know the scouts in the area, and I asked them, who's the best pitching coach in Northern California or in California? And they all told me the same thing. It was Bob Bennett. So I got on the phone, I called him, told him who I was. And he said, give me a couple of days to find out who you are and come down on Saturday and throw for me. So I went down and threw for him on the side. We toured the school, and I threw on the side for him, and he said he offered me a scholarship after the throwing session. And then I told him, I don't care if I ever pitch for you, just teach me how to pitch. And he did that in the 2 years I was with him. And then we would see each other every once in a while, and we would stop and just talk pitching for a half hour. It was a pleasure, just a joy to spend time with him. He passed away a couple of years ago, but we did have a reunion, and we all got together, and he came to it. He had multiple sclerosis or dementia, something that didn't have long to live, but he made it that day, and I got to spend 10, 15 minutes with him, and it was a wonderful time. He was a great man, great coach, won, I believe, 1,500 games at the Division I level, was an outstanding coach, and just, he taught me how to pitch, and I went out in the minor leagues and applied it every fifth day, what he taught me.
So describe the 1980 Phillies championship team. What was it like to be on that team? I believe Dallas Green was the manager, if I recall.
Right. Dallas took over at the end of 1979 when they fired Danny Ozark. And the Phillies were on a run. They won the division in 76. My rookie year, 77 and 78, we won the division. Had a tough year in 79, had a lot of injuries, and then put everything back together in 80. And the pleasure of the enjoyment I had in the 80 team was when I was on my rookie year in 77, the only rookies were Randy Lurch and myself. Jerry Martin was a rookie a couple of years prior to that, and we were the only young kids on the team. It was a real veteran team. And now the 80 team, with all the injuries in 79, they started bringing up the kid out of the minor leagues that I'd played with, that Dallas developed as a farm director in the minor leagues. So he was very familiar with what we had in the minor leagues. And to my opinion, he knew how to run the pitching staff. So that's where the difference between Danny and Dallas, where Dallas was an ex-pitcher and ran the pitching staff, and that's how we won. I mean, that's what it takes. The years prior, when we lost to the Dodgers and they lost to Cincinnati, their pitching staffs were better than ours. So we were fortunate. In 1980, we put everything together, and it was a knockdown, drag-out series with Houston, 4 of the 5 games going extra innings. And then finally getting to a World Series after 3 frustrating playoff series. And it was like everybody relaxed. We relaxed and just had fun and went back to playing, no pressure, and just went out and played the way we're capable of playing. And we're fortunate enough to win the World Series.
Well, you talk about a veteran-laden team. Do you feel that there was a bigger bond because you guys were really on the back end of your careers, Nolan, and then you reached the pinnacle a bit by being able to capture that title?
Right. It was something that was very fortunate. We finally got over the hump to get to the World Series. And like I said, it was relaxation, just play baseball and have fun. And the media was it was unbelievable how many people were there, and just everything was under a microscope. And it was fun being in that situation. I enjoyed every minute of it. It was a lot of fun.
So I remember, everybody knows Steve Carlton never talked to the media. So what was it like being around his locker that nobody was around? He wouldn't have no problem with it.
Oh yeah, he was very personable. To his teammates, he loved all of us, and we all loved him, and he was our leader. So I learned a lot from him. Everybody did. He was a very knowledgeable person, very smart, very articulate, and it was fun to be around. He just had to be in the right place at the right time.
I'll never forget. I have one story, and then I want to get to our information here. That I was at Jack Russell Stadium over in Clearwater, and Von Hayes, when he came to town, he got a rude awakening, didn't he? You know, he was
Yeah.
involved with a multi-player deal.
Right. Yeah, 5 for 1.
Yeah, 5 for 1. And I heard a fan from Jack Russell Stadium. If you guys cover spring training, it's one thing. 5 for 1, and then some interesting comment there. And I decided, you know what? I want to write a story on this guy.
Yeah.
So I walk up to Von, and he was so great. He actually embraced me in there, knowing he was traded for 5 players that they thought he was that good. So
Right. I went up and started talking to him. I played against him.
Go ahead.
When in the off season, or in before we went to spring training, when I was in the minor leagues, I was still living at home with my parents in the off season, and we went around and played the colleges. We played Cal, we played Stanford, we played Santa Clara, and Vaughn was going to St. Mary's at the time, and I pitched against him, and he tells me I got a base hit off you, though. Yeah, obviously I don't remember him from them, but when he got traded to the Phillies in that 5 for 1 deal, I went to him and pulled him aside and said, hey, don't put any pressure on yourself. This is a great town to play in. You play hard. That's all they care about. You play hard, give it everything you got. You'll be loved here, and he had a lot of pressure on him. And I said, just relax, have fun. You're here for a reason, and just have fun playing the game.
Yeah. I asked him for the interview, he was absolutely fantastic. So, all right. Yeah. So let me point out that the audio version of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. So please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Philadelphians are going out here and listening and watching the show. I may be bringing this guy on a lot. He knows a whole lot. So Philadelphia, get on board with us. Although I have a few loyal people in Philadelphia that I'm really grateful.
They're great people.
Show me the brotherly love and subscribe. All right. So with that said, please also comment, like, share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? Send topic ideas at South Florida Tribune at gmail.com, or if you participate in the chat room, that's another way to get on here with us too. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. And this is the second show, and I'm getting worse and more energy. Goodbye, sleep. Yeah, but hello, Eric Katz. Okay, you have any questions for Mr. Brusstar?
I do. So, you were on the team that the Phillies' very first World Series team. They had won 2 pennants previously and have been coming up short since then. Describe what the city was like when the Phillies finally won it all.
Oh, well, it was the craziest thing. After the day out, the next morning we got up and had a parade, and they estimate that there was over 1 million people there. We came down Ben Franklin Parkway to Broad Street to JFK, the old football stadium on the other side of the vet, and it was just pandemonium. It was crazy, people everywhere, and that was as far as playing baseball, you love playing the game, but the most fun was the parade, to see everybody. They were all handing us beers, and we drank beer the whole way on the floats, and we just had a great time. It was all sorts of fun. It was and the people of Philadelphia, it was we probably finally brought them home a baseball championship.
Yep. So, you were there with Danny Ozark, which the Phillies had. The Phillies fired him toward the end of 1979, and they bring in Dallas Green. Two couldn't be more polar opposites of each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
How was the adjustment going from a guy like Danny Ozark, who everybody loved, which would you say is players coach?
Right.
You go to arguably a guy who could have been the general in Dallas Green.
Right. Yeah.
What was the adjustment like?
Well, for me, it wasn't, it wasn't it's no adjustment. I came every day ready to play, and all I wanted to do was get the opportunity to play, and I was happy as could be when I got to play. So, I worked my tail off. I had to work hard to get there, and you have to work harder even to stay there. And I had some injury issues in 79 and part of 80. And I finally got healthy, so I was just happy to be there playing, and Dallas and I had our we had our battles between us, and I think he really respected me because I stood up for myself when I had my injuries and said I could pitch. If if it's not here, then it's somewhere else. But all I'm trying to do is get myself healthy and be able to help you. And I was fortunate enough. I was able to pitch half the season that year. And I was in the fourth game of the playoffs in the ninth inning. He brought me in a situation that I wasn't accustomed to, and I got away with murder. I walked the first guy. They sacrificed him to second, and Terry Poole comes up, and I'm going, I've never got him out. And he lines a base hit to center field, ties the game. Loudest noise I've ever heard in my life. The Astrodome was just erupting. And then Enos Cabell comes up, and I throw strike one to him, and then they pull a hit and run. And I jam him, and he hits a little fly ball to Bake McBride in right field. And Terry Poole is around second at shortstop, and I come down off the mound, and he runs by me. He didn't retrace his steps or anything, and I just ran and got behind Pete to make sure that ball didn't get in the dugout because it's going to be a double play. And it was a double play. We got out of the inning. We scored in the top of the 10th, and then Tug shut him out in the bottom of the 10th, and we won. So I got a win. They blew a save, but I got a win, and we stayed. We went to Game 5, and that's where Marty faced Nolan Ryan, and Nolan Ryan taking a 3-run lead into the 8th inning was 105-2 lifetime. And we pulled it out. We ended up. I couldn't believe they took him out, and then when they did, we ended up scoring 5 runs that inning, going up 7-5. They came back and tied it, and we finally won it in the 10th inning.
Yeah, I was going to say Nolan Ryan's the only guy who one run is enough.
Oh yes, he was, what a phenomenal talent he was. I had the great fortune of getting a hit off him one time. And Alan Ashby was the catcher, and I hit him on the shin guards with my bat and said, I'm just going to stand here and listen. I'm not going to embarrass myself.
Speaking of Tug, you obviously shared the bullpen with him, where Tug was the closer. Can you describe what Tug was like as a person? We all know he was obviously a great closer.
Right. He was hilarious. He was great to be around. He was real fun. He loved to have a great time, and we always had a good time together. And he was very, very interesting, very articulate. Always, if you had a problem or you needed an answer to something, you always go ask Tug, and he always had an answer, and he'd come with something real quick. He was fun to be around. He was a great person.
Okay, I think that will I'll rest my case there and have the other guys ask their questions.
All right.
Well, yeah, Tug McGraw, to me, here's a guy that played with the Mets and then with the Phillies, so he certainly knew I-95 pretty well, didn't he?
Yes.
But everybody knows if you're going from Philadelphia to New York, it isn't that far of a drive. I've actually taken that drive when I was on my way back from Cooperstown, West City. So, yeah, it's a shame that he passed away early. All right, we're going to turn over to Tim Long.
So, obviously, you as a pitcher, who's the toughest batter you've ever faced in your MLB career?
The one hitter I couldn't get out the most was Keith Hernandez, and there's another one that should be in the Hall of Fame. He was the best, by far the best defensive first baseman. In the National League, when I played, first base was basically a DH position. All the first basemen in the league couldn't throw. Keith was the one that could throw, and he fielded his position as good. He won, 10 Gold Gloves or something ridiculous, 8 Gold Gloves. He was outstanding, and he was a line drive hitter. And whatever I threw up there, he hit a line drive. It didn't matter what I threw up there. He was on everything I threw, and we'd played against each other when he was in high school and I was in junior college. I played when I got drafted by the Giants. I played in a team down in the Bay Area on the weekends in the fall of 1971, and his father was a Cardinals scout or bird dog for the Cardinals, and his brother, I believe Gary, played for the Cardinals a little bit to their system, and he was still in high school, and I can remember I couldn't get out then either. So things never changed.
So then my final question is, obviously, baseball has new rule changes, but besides that, how has baseball actually changed since you played the game?
Well, it's, that's the biggest thing is bat flips and stuff like that. Hitters going crazy, and stuff like that, which, I've kind of gotten used to it. But the one thing we always said was you act like you've done it before. You do, like Mike Schmidt. I couldn't imagine Mike Schmidt bat flipping 50 times a year. I mean, it's ridiculous. I can understand it in a big game or something like that, in a playoff game or a World Series game. That's something that hit a big home run, but to do it every day for 6 months it's a little bit ludicrous, I think, and the guys adjusting their batting gloves and all that stuff. And I understand what they're trying to do is get a pitcher out of his rhythm, because if they're having a hard time with him, the one thing you've got to do to change things is to get a pitcher out of his rhythm, but I believe I like the pitch clock. I'm glad to see him make him work go, because I mean, we're not getting paid by the hour, and the people for me, it was less time to think. I got the ball, saw the sign, and went. I just, I don't want to think about, should I do this or I do that? If I started thinking, I was in trouble.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you, Warren.
All right, Jordan.
All right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to carry on for Jordan in just a moment before I turn over to George. Okay, you address the pitch clock. I love your analogy that we're not getting paid by the hour. That's I heard that, but that's really good. All right, but let's take it a little step further than where Jordan did. Great questions, by the way, Jordan. Really.
Thank you.
So larger bases, like them or not?
It wouldn't, to me, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't make, if it's easier for the guys to run the bases, and because of taller, higher bases, the guys were slipping on them, especially it rains a lot in the Midwest and the East Coast. It's not so much. I guess you do in San Diego and LA, you do, and San Francisco, you do have the influx of at night where the overcast and the clouds come in and the fog rolls in. So you do have some of that, but those bases get slipped and guys fall and twist their ankles, and you hate to see somebody get hurt running the bases. I think and I like to see them stealing bases again. That was part of the game, moving runners, and they're getting back to playing baseball the way it was played and the way it was designed to be played. Execution. I coach junior college baseball, and that's every day. That's all I talk about. The team that executes is going to win games. So you've got to work on your execution and be able to produce, and then we'll send you on to a 4-year college.
Let's talk about the mound visits. They only allow 3. You like that or not?
Well, the one's time, I don't think if a catcher gets crossed up by the pitcher and the pitcher's having a hard time, getting the signals, I don't see how they do, but sometimes they get crossed up. And if that's the case, I can see a mound visit from the catcher or the pitcher. And then there's times where it seems like every time they send up a pinch hitter now, the catcher comes out and they discuss how they're going to attack the guy, because they've gone over before the game and talked about how they're going to face the everyday 9 now. So they've got those guys, what their plan of attack is with those guys. So now when a pinch hitter comes up, I think the catcher should come out to the pitcher and be able to talk to him for a second, and just get situated how they're going to pitch to the guy and then go from there. It does take some time, but with the pitch clock and everything, the game's moving along quick. They've cut almost a half hour, 25 minutes to a half hour off each game now, and it's, I think, a lot more enjoyable for the fans. And I mean, bottom line, no matter how much you have fun playing the game, we still got to have fans to produce the game, and that's what it's all about. Is the fans are a big part of the game, and you got to make it enjoyable for them. I think a lot of them got turned off. You don't want to go spend 3.5 hours at the ballpark when you can do it in 2.5.
All right, so that's a great segue to the Ghost Runner. You like it or you don't?
I don't. Really, bottom line, you've got to win the game. I understand what they're trying to do. They don't want to play 15, 16 innings anymore. I understand that, and they're trying to save pitchers. But I pitched in a pitching staff. We used 11 pitchers one year, the entire season. And we didn't. That I can remember, I never played on a team where we had to bring in a position player to pitch. If I was pitching, to give me the ball, I'll pitch. I pitched 3 or 4. I pitched 3 in the third innings one day and came back and threw 3 2/3 the next day. I could throw every day. And it's a mindset. And I think they've gotten away from that with the contracts the way they are today. Is I'm making $5 million a year. I'll pitch a couple times a week, and I can do that for 15 years. It's I think that has a lot to do with the mindsets, because I coached in the Philly organization for 6 years, and Dallas was back in the organization as a mentor and a liaison for the general manager. And Dallas said, teach these kids to pitch complete games. They should be wanted. I mean, I pitched in the minor leagues in Double-A my last year in the full year in the minor leagues. I had 27 starts and I had 19 complete games. I threw 199 and 2/3 innings. So I went 9. I got to play every 5th day. I want to play the whole game. I don't want to give the ball to somebody in the 7th inning and have them blow my game. That's my responsibility. That was my mentality, and that's the way I was taught in the minor leagues.
Okay, well, let's talk about banning the shifts. You like it? Do you like that or not?
I do, because it wasn't fair for a left-handed hitter, to sway and put everybody on the right side of the infield and everything. Yeah, I do. It gives them a fair chance, just like a right-handed hitter. The more I see it, the better I like it, because I watch baseball every day, and you see line drives that, whoa, last year that would have been right at somebody. Now their line drives up the middle. It's a lot more fair for everybody involved.
Okay, 3-batter minimum.
I like that better than, there were a lot of left-handed pitchers in my time. Paul Ossenmacher ended up pitching 7 or 8 years at the end of his career, where he'd come in and face one guy a day. Could pitch every day, but just face one guy. You want to, have a chance to make him face some right-handers, because as a right-hander, I had to face left-handers and get them out. I had to figure out how to do that. So it should be the same way, and they get him out of there after 1 or 2 hitters, and that would be it. But that was the way the game was played. It was structured that way. And I like it better now. The guy's got to be out there and face a few hitters and be able to get multiple people out, not just one hitter out.
Well, the only thing I'll say to this before I turn over to George Eichhorn, 3-batter minimum, I can handle that one, because back in the day, relievers used to pitch 2 or 3 innings. So 3 batters.
Right. Yeah, that was nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. If there's one rule that doesn't make it, that I could care less about. And remember, though, Warren, when I cover the Marlins down here in South Florida, I'm seeing everything from the press box. So I wouldn't know if the bases look like a pizza box or anything lower than that when you're way up in the sky, right, George? I mean, you really notice these larger bases, George, when you're up there? No. I don't. I mean, I don't even see the pitch clock, because I'm in the 3rd level at the press box. But the only timing device I know is when I showed up there and when I left, and the rest of it is called the ignorance factor. And I like the ignorance factor because I don't have to stay any longer than I have to. All right, George Eichhorn has been patiently waiting, so the patience is going to be rewarded. Go ahead, George.
Well, Warren, we hear a lot about the ball players of today not appreciating, not having a good knowledge of some of the past stars in the league. I'm going to take you back to an era called the Whiz Kids in Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And the reason we have a connection here in Detroit is because one of those kids, Bob Miller, was the longtime University of Detroit baseball coach here.
Oh, wow.
Did a terrific job for a number of years. And Bob was so proud of what he and Robin Roberts and the rest of those guys did.
Right.
Did you have any talk or any appreciation of that, Warren, that Phillies era?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah, Andy Semenek, the catcher, was a catching instructor when I was coaching in the minor leagues. I coached in the Phillies minor leagues from 1999 to 2004, and Andy was there. I used to get a ride from him to the ballpark. We stayed in the same hotel, and I'd get a ride with him in the morning. And then Robin Roberts, I coached 5 years. I did extended spring training, and Robin lived in Tampa, and his son was one of the coaches on our staff. And Robin was there. He would come at least once a week, and he would come in after the game was over. We'd sit down and have a beer and just talk baseball. He was so fun to be around. I loved him. What a superhuman being. He was so much fun, and he knew every pitcher in our organization. He talked about the kids in Double-A, whoever you mentioned a name, and he could tell you all the facts about him. He really stayed in the organization and was a real supporter of the organization, and was because it's hot and it's tough, and we have long days down there, and he was a breath of fresh air to talk to in the afternoon. It was fun to hear the stories he would tell. It was great to be around Robin. And Andy too. Andy was a piece of work. He was hilarious. He was really a funny man. And then Granny Hamner, Ruben Amaro, Bobby Wine, all the guys in the 60s, they were there as coaches when I was playing, coming up through the system. Larry Rojas, Bob Tiefenauer. There was a lot of them. Billy Wilson. All the coaches were players in the 60s, and I pride myself on knowing baseball and growing up. Watching Willie Mays and Willie McCovey and Orlando Cepeda and Juan Marichal and Gaylord Perry. Fortunate to get to play against Gaylord, and I got to face Willie McCovey one time. That was a huge thrill. Great thrill to get to face Willie McCovey.
Absolutely. And the one of the other things I wanted to follow up with you on is the contribution that the Phillies made to that Detroit Tigers 1984 championship. His name is Willie Hernandez.
Right. Yes. I played with Willie in the minor leagues.
How Bill LaJoy and Jim Campbell got their hands on Willie Hernandez. And obviously, as you guys know, he not only won the Cy Young, but the AL MVP that year.
Right. Exactly.
And did you know much about Willie, or Guillermo as he's called?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I played with him in Spartanburg my rookie year. My first year in pro ball, I played with him half a season. Yeah, so I knew Willie from way back, and then I played with him. He was briefly with us with the Cubs. They traded him to the Phillies the first week or second week of April in 1983. So we ran across each other all the time. Yeah, Willie, he was, what a character he was. He had a big afro when we played in Spartanburg, and he dyed it white, absolutely snow white the last day of the season. Yeah, he was quite a character.
What about Tony Taylor? Was Tony Taylor?
I mean, he was the greatest. He was the greatest person.
I loved him.
God.
Yeah, here in Detroit, he wasn't here that long, but boy, everybody loved him.
Right. Yeah. TT. He was our first base coach when I played in Venezuela in Maracaibo, and the owner had a 15 square mile ranch, and we went out for a barbecue one day, and he had horses, and all of a sudden, here comes Tony pulling up on the horse, and he looked like rawhide. I mean, it's just, oh boy, I've never seen a man so happy in all my life. He was just having the best fun. Oh, he was having a great time riding horses all around the ranch. He was a great person, and he was always very, very really pulled for you and just gave you nothing but positive feedback every time. He was a great man. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much, Warren, for sharing these with me.
You're welcome, George. Thank you. Thank you. I enjoy being able to spread my knowledge and a few things that I know about baseball.
Yeah.
Well, each and every one of you guys did a great job. Now I got followed because of Eric, Gordon, and George. So you get me again there, Warren. Okay, let's talk. I got to tell you, when I worked for the Gastonia Rangers, though, I went over to that Spartanburg Park, and I know full well that Spartanburg Phillies were there for a long time.
Yes, they were.
The relationship came to an end, but there are a lot of great Phillies that came out of there. So with that said, I love your analogy on the bat flip, okay? And the one guy that comes to my mind is Barry Sanders, who used to hand the ball to the official and went back and used to score it. And the way you described it, my first thought process was Barry Sanders hands the ball and the bat flips are stupid. I mean, they were right. I personally don't like them. So have you ever considered being a manager?
No, I enjoy when I was coaching in the minor leagues, I found my niche was the pitching coach at the New York Penn level or the rookie league, where the older kids that came in from colleges, from the 3 and 4 year colleges, came in, and what I did with them, because they got there with their fastball. Now they need a breaking ball, and we'd sharpen up, and this is stuff that I learned from Steve Carlton about a slider. So if the kids threw sliders, I was able to sharpen it up and give them some knowledge on sliders that Steve Carlton taught us. So it was things that I could pass on that I'd learned from a Hall of Famer. So it was, it's very easy knowledge. And then the kids would just fly through the system if they could get it, if they could figure it out. And they had a breaking ball. Now that's what we were told in the minor leagues. If you have one pitch that you can throw for a strike at any time, you got a chance of pitching in the big leagues. If you got two that you could throw for a strike at any time, you got a chance of staying.
Wow, that's pretty good analogy. It really is. We talk about the complete game pretty much being taken out of baseball. That's a shame, too, because
it is right. And you see the kid in Alcantara in with the Marlins. He had more than all the rest of the National League combined, and he's
that's true. And he's a heck of a pitcher. I love watching Sammy.
Yes, I do too.
But the thing about complete games that people have to understand, which I don't think they're bad, is if you're on 5 days rest or every 5 days, there's every reason why you should have as many or a lot of them, because you take the pressure off your bullpen and you don't overwork them, number one.
Right.
That's what I've always thought. Even 4 days wasn't bad and everybody was piling up complete games. But it's just a shame, Warren, that complete games are really de-emphasized. I understand there's a lot of money invested into these players. You worry about the Tommy John surgery, but still, that's the one part of baseball that is sorely missed. We talk about things that have made it all right again.
Right.
The complete games I got a problem with. So with that said, okay, we have a couple people that are homers here. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of name dropping. Okay. And the one that stands in my mind is a Yankee fan who's been taught to not wear any paraphernalia on here with it, but it doesn't stop his boss here from mentioning about whether or not Don Mattingly belongs in the Hall of Fame. Do you agree or disagree, Warren?
Oh, I agree. I definitely think Don Mattingly, he did some things that people didn't do. He hit more home runs. He had 7 games in a row where he hit home runs, tied a major league record. Was arguably one of the greatest hitters to ever play the game. Had a beautiful left-handed stroke, and that's one thing I've always wondered: why do left-handed hitters have beautiful strokes as opposed to right-handed hitters? You take a Tony Gwynn, a Rod Carew, a Don Mattingly. They're beautiful swings as opposed to a right-hander. Just oh, good. Eric's got an answer.
Yeah, I've got a theory. I was gonna wait till you were done. I think it's because left-handed hitters they try and pull the ball more. They kind of go to their natural side rather than trying to go oppo with it, which is like what a lot of right-handed hitters do.
Right.
I think part of it is you find more left-handed pull hitters. I know baseball. I've seen a number of them over the years, but left-handed hitters tend to go to their natural side more, and so that's why you see more of a pretty swing. Which although I've seen some hitters over the years with an ugly swing, but still ball leaves yard. Yeah. And I don't think the fans or the management is complaining.
No. I saw in Chicago, Bill Buckner hit a ball one day that was in his eyes, and he hit it that way, and he hit it that way like a tennis racket. I couldn't believe my eyes, and the ball stayed straight right down the right field line and hit the foul pole.
That's another guy who should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. So you know what?
Yeah.
While you brought it up, let me go ahead and ask you about Bill Buckner.
Yeah.
Then I have another guy I want to address. You know what? To me, if it wasn't for that unfortunate defensive play that seems to haunt this guy, if you take his batting average and everything about his offense, this guy should be a lock in the Hall of Fame. He really should.
Well,
some thoughts on that?
And what he did to play every day was just what he went through to play every day, an hour before the game, getting his ankles taped and iced down and heat and ice. And then after the game, again, another hour getting iced down and just he went through that every single day just to play. And it was amazing what he went through. So we're in the clubhouse after the game. I had a little weight routine that I did every day. So we used to talk to each other while we were he was icing and I was doing my weight routine, and it's the 1st of June. And he says, I don't have any home runs this season. So I'm going to start tomorrow. I'm going to start hitting home runs. And I was sitting there go, okay, good, Bill. That sounds real good. He had 0 home runs 1st of June. Between June 1st and August 16th or 15th, he hit 16 home runs. Wow. August 15th, his average went down, and August 16th, he goes, I'm going to quit hitting home runs. He didn't hit another one the rest of the year. He could do whatever he wanted to do with the bat. It was amazing how he could put the bat on the ball. And the one thing that hurt him the most was he wasn't, with 0-2, 3-0 counts, he wasn't disciplined. He would pop balls up. They would in. And I was told, Ron Reed told me the first time I faced him, don't throw him a strike. He'll swing at something out of the strike zone. And it's because he could hit it. I mean, it was amazing what he could do with the bat.
Unbelievable. And another should-be Hall of Famer is Mickey Lolich. I had the good pleasure of having him on a Sports Exchange. But if you ever talk a guy who obviously the 1968 World Series MVP on there, I don't think his record probably helps his cause any. But the fact that he had so many complete games and an innings eater, would you say, Warren, that Mickey Lolich belongs in the Hall of Fame?
Oh, yeah, without question. Yeah. I mean, the longevity and the things that guys are getting in their eras are, don't have the statistics like a Mickey Lolich has, and some of the guys have in back in the 50s and 60s, and the longevity they had. Finally they recognized Jim Cott. I was fortunate enough to play with Jim Cott for 2 years, and they finally recognized that not everybody plays 27 years. That's something special in itself. Regardless of what numbers he put up, to play that long, he had to be doing something right.
All right. And another guy, when we talk about complete games, who unfortunately passed away too early, it was Roy Halladay.
Right.
This guy here could have played in any era.
Oh, yes.
Agree or disagree?
Right. Oh, I agree totally. Yeah. He reinvented himself. He had the worst year ever. He had a 10-something ERA, came back. They sent him all the way back to A-ball to get with the coach that he was familiar with. They restructured his arm angle and everything, which is very difficult to do. I mean, I heard him talking about changing your arm angle. Oh my God, that's, I thought about that. And I go, whoa, that's very, very difficult to do. And then to come back and be at the top of your game and be the top pitcher for arguably at least a 5-year period there, he was phenomenal. The things that he did were just phenomenal, totally phenomenal. And he did it for 9 innings every game. You could depend on him for 9 innings and giving a bullpen a rest every 5th day.
I mean, we can talk about pitching all day long, but with all due respect, you brought up Nolan Ryan, but Frank Tanana is another guy who did a wonderful job changing things up so that he had a formidable career as well. Any final thoughts on Frank Tanana, and then we'll wrap this bad boy up?
Right. He was a guy that threw very hard when he first came up, and then had arm problems and totally reinvented himself, and had great success both ways as a power pitcher and as a finesse pitcher. He was another guy that just he learned how to pitch.
And I didn't mean to interrupt you, Warren, but I don't think the Tigers would have been the division winners without Frank Tanana in 1987.
Right.
What he did to that team, and they beat out Toronto. Remember at the very end. Right. Mm-hmm. Frank is a great guy. Still lives in the Detroit area. Yeah. A member of the Polish Sports Hall of Fame, which I'm involved in. And Frank is a great guy. And you're right. He reinvented himself.
Right. Yeah. He's totally, had a great career, just blew people away young, and then had arm problems, and then completely reinvented himself and was just as good, if not a better pitcher when he learned how to pitch, and used what he had. And that's what you have to do. I had to do something similar to that when I hurt my shoulder. I'd lost 3 to 5 miles an hour on my fastball, but more than anything, I lost the movement. So instead of throwing sinkers, I threw more sliders and changeups. I learned a new pitch. I had to reinvent myself, and I would just use my fastball to move people off the plate with it, and come back and throw sliders and changeups to get people out with.
All right, so I'm going to go around the horn one more time. Yes, in baseball, we can use that sort of terminology. Okay. I'll take it. It is part of the sport. I use it. I'm glad I have a good crew here tonight, so I can. And I also want to thank Willie Epting for his participation early in the show. I know the next time we bring him on in 2 weeks, he'll be able to stay the entirety, but he got what he needed in, and that's what I was happy about with Willie. All right, Eric, any last question for Warren?
Yes. Well, with the bases being bigger, I'm sure it helped having Bob Boone behind the dish. Yes. With the bases being bigger, do you think Bob Boone would have been as great as he was during your era?
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he was a great catcher. He really ran the show, and was somebody that, he put his finger down, and I just followed suit. Whatever you put down, I'm throwing. So I knew he knew the hitters. He came out one night, we're in Pittsburgh, and Bill Robinson had played with the Phillies, and he knew Bill. And he came out, I had 2 strikes on me. He said, bounce a slider right on top of home plate. He'll swing at it every time. He goes back, I bounce a slider on home plate, and he swung and missed, strike 3. It was just little things like that where we talked about, pitchers, catchers coming out and having conferences with pitchers. It was just one thing he ran out, told me, and turned around, ran back, and boom, and we were right back to work, and I threw the pitch, and it was successful because he knew a little things. Every once in a while, he'd come up with little things that helped you get through.
Okay, Jordan.
Yeah, nothing.
That's okay. Hey, listen, you asked some incredible questions earlier. That's okay. All right, George.
Uh-huh.
Well, one Tiger that got away, Warren, is a very important Tiger. He's still with the organization now. But do you have any recollection of Lance Parrish? Lance Parrish, of course, left the Tigers, and it was very controversial because he took a lot of money to sign with the Phillies, and right. The Tigers could never recover after they lost Lance behind the dish.
Right. Well, I was, I guess, fortunate enough to play against the Tigers in instructional league in 1975 and 76. And those guys were all together.
Oh, yeah.
Trammell, Whitaker, Parrish, the whole crew were coming up together through the system, and we'd play against them in instructional league. One year, I think they went 51-9. They just tore it up. I mean, they were just phenomenal talents, and that's what you want, a guy like Lance Parrish, who's a durable, big physical guy that can play every day. When I played with Bob Boone, I played with Jody Davis in Chicago with the Cubs. They were big, durable guys that caught every inning. Jody Davis, when Steve Lake, our backup catcher, contracted hepatitis, Jody Davis caught every inning for 6 weeks but one. And he caught every day, and he wanted to catch every day. I think it shortened his career, but he wanted to play every day. And those guys, the durable catcher, you've got it. That's what makes your team run. The catcher is an outstanding position as far as they got to run the team. They see the field from every different perspective than the other 8 players, and they're in charge, and they run the defense.
Well, good. Now I really got a powerful question. When I played ball back in the day, Little League, that is, I played catcher, and I used to use every tactic on the planet from barking in the umpire's ear to distract them. Okay, that was a lousy call. I could do better. If that wasn't bad enough, I used to go ahead and ride the hitter. Said, I think he's going inside. I was disrupting the concentration. I got called for more catcher interference calls than anybody. I mean, so I guess where this is leading is, why do catchers make the best managers?
Well, just like I said, they see the game from a different perspective. They've seen it from the other way, from behind, and they do. They've got to be able to run the pitching staff. And like I said before about Dallas Green, when he took over as manager, he ran the pitching staff. He knew how to run and how to bring guys in certain situations that most managers don't, unless they were a pitcher or a catcher. And to me, one of Tony La Russa's pitching coach was Dave Duncan, an old catcher. Never threw a pitch in his entire life, but had a great career as a pitching coach because he understood what it took to pitch, and he had great success doing it.
Oh, I used to drive my teammates crazy. I would go out there and take the mound visits I needed. I once caught a foul ball with my mask on, and everybody's trying to tell me to go ahead and take it off, and I never caught another foul ball after that, because I felt like in my case, I was able to keep my eye on the ball and then put that stupid mask off, and all of a sudden I lost sight of it. So I said, you know what? I'm keeping the stupid helmet and mask on. I really didn't care. And if that wasn't bad enough, okay, I remember warming up our pitchers between innings, and I actually got the job one time when our two catchers didn't show up. My dad was managing the team, and let's face it, I was a lousy position player anywhere else. So I'm raising my hand up as hard as making sure my dad at the time could see it. Don't worry, he saw it. I mean, his kid is loud. He can't play, and you know what? I got that position. I never let it go. And one of the 2 catchers quit, and I said, "Too bad, so sad. You show up." and otherwise you lose your job. And I had it, and I'm proud of it. And I can tell you how many great interviews I've had with catchers through the years. When I bring you on one of these days, Warren, I'd like you to come on more often if you want to.
Oh, sure, I'd be glad to. Yes,
oh, don't worry, we have a lot of fun here. We can't laugh.
Yeah, this is great fun. I've really enjoyed myself. Thank you, Scott.
Hey, we can't have fun here. You know what? I'll go with one of my old friends that I grew up in the business. We're in deep trouble. Yeah, and you know that's the kind of thing you think you're going to go to sleep later, but you're not for sure 3 hours on the other side. No, I mean, I love bringing on new baseball analysts. Is really what I like to do. I had a good one last week with K.R. Lombardia, who saw it from a high school standpoint. Having you the following week means I have a candid guy who didn't play in the majors, and now I got a new baseball analyst by the name of Warren Brusstar. You ever heard of him?
Yeah.
Well, you're being nominated for the job by what am I, Eric?
You're the dad of all this.
Oh, okay, that's right. I'm the dad of this guy. So
yeah, you definitely are.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is, Warren, I'd like you to come on from time to time here because we'll have other different topics. Today was more of a reflection of your career in the 80s and Rose, but don't worry, with myself and this crew and everybody else, I have no problem bringing you on as often as you want to come on. In fact, I think Jordan and Eric and George would say, is it safe to give this guy an open invitation anytime he wants to come on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
I was good.
Well, it was good. We have a unanimous decision, or a majority doesn't mean everybody, but unanimous is okay. So that's good to know. All right. With that said, you know what? I want to let everybody know it's 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Mad Mouth, and don't you forget that, Warren, because I do have a little Michigan type of twang there. I'm glad we're talking baseball with Mr. Warren Brusstar, who's seen it all on many different levels. And my regular crew consists of Eric Katz, Jordan Long, George Eichhorn, and Willie Epting is going to be a part of our crew a couple times a month as well. So I think Willie will be happy to know that you're going to be on here more often. He'll be, and he does a lot with baseball. So any closing thoughts from the rest of you?
No, I'd say this has been a fun show, especially being able to talk to Warren Brusstar, who played for obviously the Phillies' first championship team, and hearing all sorts of stuff on that front, as well as hearing his opinions about today's game.
All right. Well, with that said, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know how they get a hold of you, Eric?
You can follow me on my Twitter at Sports Team News, or you can see my blog at bellyupsports.com, where I talk all things baseball.
Okay. What about you, Jordan?
You can find me on Twitter at SportsCube1. I have a blog that I write Mondays through Thursdays with podcasts on Fridays at sports-scoop.com. Also, you can find me here on 108 Stitches on Tuesday nights. And then Wednesdays, I am on the Pundits Pundit on the Sideline Sports Network. And you can find me on a bunch of their shows.
All right. Now we have a new nickname to give George Eichhorn. Now you see him, now you don't. Okay. Well,
sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I'm just busting your chops. All right.
I know. Warren, yeah, it's good to have you. Good to be on with you.
So, George, why don't you got some information? Why don't you go out there and flash that thing called a book?
Yeah, it's a book here that I wrote. Oh, look at Eric Katz. We got dual. Detroit sports broadcasters on the air. I know, Warren, you remember guys like Ernie Harwell.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Kell, Paul Carey, Ray Lane.
Right.
I put a book together with all their memories, and Scott's in this book. Scott's been a partner of mine for 43 years in Detroit and elsewhere. And so the book's available at the South Florida Tribune. I write under the Motor City Tribune website. And we have a lot of fun on the different shows we're on together. You can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com or on Twitter at sandgsports99. And I'm on this show and other shows that Scott has on the network. I'm glad to be part.
So, Warren, is there any way that people can get a hold of you or follow you anywhere?
I can be reached at Gmail at Brusstar, BRUSSTAR 40@gmail.com.
All right. Well, so if you have any questions for Warren Brusstar, now you have his email address. All right. Let me go over some of our business here at the Trib. The audio version of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also like, comment, share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. All you need to do is send topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com, or you can come in the chat room. We had a guy on earlier for Fire Up Michigan who did that, and guess what? He was invited, and this guy was awfully darn good. Okay, if you want to advertise cost efficiently, call myself at 954-304-4941. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. You can also find me on Twitter at Tribune South. Our website's www.southfloridatribune.com as well. Great job by Candy Ebling, who does a masterful job making sure everything is rolling well. Without her, obviously, it would be difficult to get anything up there. And thankfully, all I get to do is talk while she's the brains of the organization. So what a great show tonight. Great first act, Warren.
Thank you.
You on for a long time. And now that we were able to get the technical side to work, at least you know how we can do it the next time. But
Right.
It's been great having you on, Warren.
Thank you.
Everybody has been is better because of you tonight. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Scott.
So meanwhile, on behalf of Eric Katz, Jordan Long, George Eichhorn, and Warren Brusstar, my name is Scott Morganroth from Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. We'll have another episode next Tuesday night. Good night, everybody.